absurd revenue sharing demands. And then another group, and by the way, that group would strike, I think. That if they don't do it, let's strike. The other group is like, hold on now. Hold on now. They're less inclined to strike. They're like, wait a minute now. We know we need to play basketball. All right. I think it's very odd that between ESPN and front office sports,
recent developments in the collective bargaining discussions between the WNBA and its athletes have revealed significant complications. During a notable gathering held at league headquarters in New York, franchise ownership representatives arrived without presenting any fresh terms, stating their previous offer remained on the table and required no revision. This stance came after reports emerged indicating serious disagreements within the Athletes Association regarding how to proceed. Sources indicate the players' union faces an internal split between two distinct factions. One segment advocates for maintaining their current demands, which include what many observers consider unrealistic revenue distribution requirements, and they're prepared to halt the season if necessary. The opposing faction shows hesitation about such drastic measures, recognizing the necessity of actually participating in games.
Very odd that between ESPN and front office sports, the places that's been covering this the most, I love how they do not bring up the maximum amount of money that these players would get at the end of this CBA right here. Based on recent reports, the league has proposed a significantly higher salary structure with a maximum compensation potentially approaching $1.3 million to nearly $2 million.
This division creates uncertainty about the union's ability to present unified demands. Media coverage from outlets like ESPN and front office sports has notably emphasized only the lower salary figures in the league's proposal. Reports consistently mention maximum earnings of $1.3 million while downplaying that this amount could escalate to approximately $2 million by the agreement's conclusion. This selective reporting appears designed to portray the compensation package as inadequate despite representing a substantial increase from current standards. Traditional journalism practices typically highlight the highest figures to generate interest, making this omission particularly noteworthy. The Monday gathering at New York offices extended approximately 3 hours before participants began departing.
Compensation potentially approaching $1.3 million to nearly $2 million over the life of the deal. They're making a point to only say $1.3 million because they're trying to empower the players. Well, it's just $1.3 million. Well, it's nearly $2 million by the end of the deal. So, and look, when you're talking about stories like this, you always go for the max amount of money involved because, well, that's what catches the attention.
With fewer than 100 days remaining before the season's scheduled commencement, timing has become increasingly critical. According to Nneka Ogwumike's statements, ownership representatives disclosed immediately that no new proposal had been prepared, establishing the session's framework. Ogwumike expressed disappointment at this development, noting expectations had been different. The 3-hour session focused primarily on both parties, clarifying the reasoning behind their respective positions. Information from sources involved indicates the primary objective centered on facilitating direct communication between athletes and franchise representatives, allowing questions and dialogue.
Involved because, well, that's what catches the attention. So these outlets are making a point to not mention that because they're all in on these players getting paid. They're getting paid. Maybe not. Monday's pivotal meeting between the WNBA players and owners at league offices in New York lasted roughly 3 hours before attendees slowly started trickling out. By the way, there's less than 100 days till the...
However, prominent figures like Kelsey Plum and Nneka Ogwumike participated remotely through video conference rather than attending personally, which raised eyebrows about commitment levels. Physical attendees included Brianna Stewart, Alyssa Thomas, and Stephanie Dolson representing players, while ownership sent Connecticut franchise president Jennifer Ruffin, commissioner representative, and New York ownership, including Clara Woodside. Sue Bird also participated in the discussions. Critics noted the ironic composition of attendees, pointing out many present have demonstrated hostility toward the league's most popular talent. Observers suggest the union selected arguably the least effective representatives possible for such crucial negotiations.
The start of the season. Quote, they volunteered that they did not have a proposal prepared at the top of the meeting. Nike Agumake told Front Office Sports. That kind of set the tone for the conversation because we were hoping to hear otherwise. Agumake said the 3-hour meeting was instead spent both sides explaining the thinking behind their recent proposals. One of the main priorities, according to one source familiar with the negotiation, was to allow players.
Union participation expanded to roughly 40 athletes joining via video platform, including executive committee members unable to travel. Additional participants included union leadership and various advisory personnel. Earlier the same day, reports surfaced about intense internal debates occurring among the 17-member executive committee regarding strategy and approach. Following these reports about internal disagreement, union representatives attempted damage control. Both Ogwumike and Thomas rejected characterizations of division within their organization.
Negotiation was to allow players and owners to connect and ask questions of each other. By the way, the high-profile visits, attendance in person of Kelsey Plum and Naphesia Collier did not happen. They called in via Zoom, it looks like. Good God. Breonna Turner. I mean, y'all got the worst.
Thomas specifically disputed any splitting among members, though observers noted the timing of this denial coinciding with media reports about fractures. Notably, political figure Stacey Abrams and AFL-CIO leadership participated in the athletes' call, concluding with expressions of support for the union's position. This inclusion prompted questions about optics and strategy, with critics arguing such polarizing external figures could damage public perception rather than help negotiations. The decision to involve highly partisan personalities in what should be business negotiations struck many as counterproductive to building broader support. Fan reactions across social platforms expressed frustration with the union's approach.
I mean, y'all got the worst people ever representing the women in this. Alicia Clark and Stephanie Dolson were involved in this meeting as well. Connecticut's President Jennifer Rosati, good Lord, she's a Caitlin Clark hater. Matt Amishi and New York Liberty owner Clara Wu Tasai and Sue Bird. Good Lord.
Commentary highlighted the substantial nature of ownership's offer, suggesting the compensation package represents genuinely transformative money that could change athletes' lives. Multiple observers questioned the intelligence of potentially walking away from such significant financial improvements, characterizing it as excessive greed rather than reasonable negotiation. Others noted the procedural oddities, questioning why ownership arrived prepared while union representatives appeared less organized. Criticism focused on what appeared to be inadequate preparation and questionable leadership decisions. Suggestions emerged that placing the ownership proposal to a direct vote among all players might reveal different results than union leadership suggests, with speculation that most athletes would accept quadrupling their current compensation.
Sue Bird. Good Lord. I mean, it's... Let's see how many of the most unlikable individuals in the league we can all put in one room that actually can't stand the most popular talent they have in the entire league. I've said this. They've got the worst people representing them in this. It needs to be Caitlin Clark, and we all know it.
The financial context adds weight to these discussions. The league continues operating at substantial losses measured in millions annually, yet union demands seek even greater compensation without corresponding revenue increases. This disconnect between financial reality and expectations prompted suggestions the entire enterprise should simply cease operations if these unrealistic demands persist. Ownership appears to have drawn a clear boundary, communicating their proposal represents final terms available. The position seems firm, accept what's offered or reject it, but no further concessions will be forthcoming.
Well, and we suspected then, and I talked about it, that there might be a fracture or a split between the players and the players union. Well, guess what? That's exactly what we got. This is getting more and more interesting, and it sounds like this is headed to chaos. Like you may have gridlock on the inside of the very same union that
Observers believe the majority of athletes outside those involved in alternative leagues would readily accept the current proposal if given the opportunity to vote directly. Eventually, these athletes may need to vocalize their positions publicly, making clear their willingness to accept terms and begin the season. The silent majority, who depend on league income for their livelihoods, face pressure from those with external options or ideological commitments. This dynamic creates tension between those who can afford to reject reasonable offers and those who cannot. The salary proposal itself represents remarkable increases.
Union that they can't get along, can't come to an agreement themselves. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're still subscribed. Check out blackwhitenetwork.com for exclusive content. This story just emerged. This is from ESPN. So the meeting took place this morning. Whether or not they're still in this meeting, I don't know. But, man, this is getting in there.
Current maximum compensation would jump to $1.3 million immediately, with that figure climbing toward $2 million as the agreement progresses. This represents roughly 8 to 9 times current maximum salaries, a truly extraordinary increase by any reasonable standard. Yet media coverage and union rhetoric consistently minimize these gains, focusing instead on gaps between WNBA and NBA compensation despite vastly different revenue generation. Questions persist about the union's strategic approach and whether current leadership serves members' actual interests. The decision to involve divisive political personalities, the failure to present unified positions or counter-proposals, and the apparent willingness to risk everything for demands disconnected from financial reality all suggest serious problems with negotiating strategy.
Man, this is getting interesting. There is clearly a fracture of some kind in the players' union. The WNBA and the WNBPA, the players' union, will meet Monday morning in New York. Last I checked, this is Monday. It is Monday. So I don't know if they're still in the meeting or not. For their first in-person bargaining session involving players since October. Sources close to the process told ESPN
As the season start date approaches rapidly, pressure intensifies on all parties to reach agreement. However, ownership has signaled no willingness to improve their offer, leaving the decision entirely with athletes. Accept transformative compensation increases or potentially sacrifice the season for demands unlikely to be met. The coming weeks will reveal whether pragmatism or ideology prevails among the Players Association. Recent developments revealed stark contrasts between how different WNBA figures addressed collective bargaining agreement negotiations publicly. Caitlin Clark appeared as an NBA analyst on NBC, discussing the CBA situation in measured business terms.
Involving players since October. Sources close to the process told ESPN a meeting many believe would be, quote, pivotal in whether a new collective bargaining agreement is reached or players decide to strike. Man, you want to talk about losing even more favor with the fans. So many fans. I look at the comments and the fans are just out on the players. Now that they know what they've been offered, people are like, nah, we're good. Sign the deal. The union sources has grown.
Just 2 days prior, Natasha Cloud offered dramatically different commentary on the identical subject matter, appearing far more confrontational. The handling of these parallel discussions by individuals supposedly aligned within the same organizational structure seemed notably divergent. One approach involved seemingly personal attacks directed at ownership. The alternative framed negotiations as straightforward business discussions. Suspicions emerged that fractures or divisions might exist between players and their union representation.
The union sources has grown increasingly frustrated that the league hasn't formally responded to its most recent proposal submitted around Christmas. But sources said a strong debate has emerged within the 7-member executive committee, which the NBPA body authorized in December to call a strike when necessary. According to multiple reports, one group says that now is the time to fundamentally.
Those suspicions proved accurate. The situation grows increasingly compelling and appears headed toward complete disorder. Potential gridlock within the union itself suggests internal factions cannot reach consensus or agreement among themselves. Breaking news from ESPN confirmed these divisions. The scheduled meeting convened Monday morning, though whether proceedings continued remained unclear at reporting time.
Time to fundamentally alter the league's revenue sharing model, and players shouldn't compromise further until they feel comfortable with the new system. Here's where it gets even more interesting, folks. Another group says that though there are still matters to be negotiated, the players have already gained significant ground and are closer to a deal and less inclined to pursue a strike.
Evidence clearly indicated some type of fracture within the players' union structure. The WNBA and WNBPA scheduled a Monday morning meeting in New York, their first in-person bargaining session involving players since October. Sources close to negotiations told ESPN many considered this meeting potentially pivotal in determining whether a new collective bargaining agreement would be reached or if players would choose striking. The prospect of losing additional fan support looms large. Examining fan reactions in comment sections reveals many supporters have abandoned backing the players after learning details of ownership proposals.
They got themselves a little mini war inside the players' union. Either way, both groups are eager to hear directly from the owners, instead of having layers of middlemen and lawyers separating the aisles. The WNBA PA president, Nike Agumike, first Vice President Kelsey Plum, Vice President Nafisa Collier are set to join in person. Vice President Breonna Stewart said she'll participate.
Numerous fans expressed sentiment favoring immediate deal acceptance without further delay. Union sources reportedly grew increasingly frustrated that league representatives hadn't formally responded to their most recent proposal submitted around Christmas. However, sources indicated strong debate emerged within the 7-member executive committee, which the NBPA authorized in December to call strikes when deemed necessary. Multiple reports suggest one faction argues the current moment demands fundamentally altering.
Are set to join in person. Vice President Breonna Stewart said she'll participate over video conference, an option for owners and other executive council members who cannot attend the gathering in New York. Quote, at the end of the day, we're human beings. I think conversation face-to-face goes a long way, Plum said. Going into this meeting, I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to be there in person with other players that are really invested in this, in the executive committee and stuff. And then, of course, the league making the commitment to be there. Stewart is also.
Another faction suggests that despite remaining negotiation matters, players already achieved significant gains and approach deal completion, making them less inclined toward strike action. A miniature internal conflict exists within the players' union itself. Both factions expressed eagerness to communicate directly with ownership rather than continuing negotiations through multiple layers of intermediaries and legal representatives. WNBPA President Nneka Ogwumike, First Vice President Kelsey Plum, and Vice President Nafisa Collier planned attending in person. Vice President Breonna Stewart indicated she would participate via video conference, an option available for owners and other executive council members unable to attend the New York gathering.